comes to legendary military operations, the British SAS has a habit of making history, and what unfolded in Basra in September 2005 is nothing short of a movie. Two elite operatives captured in hostile territory, beaten and facing imminent execution. Their comrades, unwilling to wait for bureaucratic red tape, take matters into their own hands. What followed was a jaw-dropping rescue mission that defied orders, shocked the world, and cemented the SAS's reputation as one of the most fearsome special forces in existence. The mission started like any other. Two SAS operatives, a sergeant and a lance corporal, were deep undercover in Basra, Iraq. Their objective? Conduct surveillance on the Iraqi police and their commander, who were suspected of widespread corruption and collusion with insurgents, particularly the Mahdi Army, a brutal Shia militia backed by Iran. The problem? The Mahdi Army despised the British. The SAS, Special Boat Service, SBS, and Special Reconnaissance Regiment, SRR, had been ruthlessly targeting them for months in an intense counterinsurgency campaign. This meant that getting caught was not an option. The consequences were as clear as day. Coalition intelligence had already witnessed the horrific fate of other captured soldiers, torture and execution. For the two undercover operatives, time was already running out. Disguised to blend in, the SAS operators were in the middle of their mission when things took a disastrous turn. Plainclothes Iraqi policemen spotted them, and before the operatives could slip away, a violent scuffle broke out. Gunshots rang out, and several Iraqi officers were wounded. It was too late. Blending in was no longer an option. I always thought as soon as I spoke to someone, they would realize I was British. But we had fake tan, hair dye. I was even driving an Iraqi taxi because we were trying our best to fit in, said Sergeant Colin McLaughlin years later. Their disguise had worked for a while, but not forever. The two operators attempted to escape, but they ran straight into an Iraqi police checkpoint. With a furious mob gathering, the policemen wasted no time. The SAS troopers were dragged out of their vehicle, beaten, and hauled off to the Al Jamiat police station. And just like that, the mission had turned into a desperate race against time. Word of their capture spread fast, and the SAS team to which they belonged immediately called for reinforcements. Their headquarters in Baghdad housed the main SAS contingent, stationed right next to the US Army's Delta Force. It was clear what needed to be done, a full-scale rescue mission. But then came the order that stunned everyone: stand down. The call came straight from the UK government. The brass in London had been blindsided by the situation and hesitated to act, fearing a political disaster. Iraq was already on a knife's edge, with terrorist groups and sectarian militias wreaking havoc across the country. The last thing the British government wanted was an all-out firefight with Iraqi police and Mahdi Army insurgents in the middle of Basra. The SAS officers were furious. No hesitation, no negotiations. This was their creed. Their men were in danger, and bureaucracy wasn't going to stand in the way of saving them. With or without approval, the SAS was going in. Meanwhile, inside the police station, the situation was deteriorating. The Iraqi police accused the captured operatives of subversion and released photos of them bloodied and handcuffed. They didn't stop there. The captives were subjected to mock executions. They had a pistol up against the back of my head. Then there would be a click. There was lots of shouting, but I couldn't really tell what they were saying. They were going to execute us, McLaughlin later recalled. For the SAS, every second counted. Reinforcements had already arrived in Basra. 20 SAS operatives from A Squadron, backed by 40 elite paratroopers from the Special Forces Support Group, SFSG, a specialized unit designed to assist SAS and SBS missions. The first attempt to retrieve the captives came in the form of a negotiation. A mechanized infantry company was sent in to demand their release. The result? A humiliating failure. A raging mob attacked the British troops with stones and Molotov cocktails, setting one of their armored personnel carriers ablaze. Several soldiers suffered injuries, and the situation escalated beyond control. The message was clear: diplomacy had failed. It was time for Plan B, a full-scale raid. With nightfall approaching, the SAS commandos prepared for the final assault. Supported by helicopter and mechanized infantry, they stormed the Al Jamiat police station with unparalleled precision. Explosions shattered the compound walls as the elite troops bulldozed their way through. Iraqi police officers, caught completely off guard, could do little as the SAS stormed the building like a thunderclap. But there was a problem. The captives weren't there. In a hasty interrogation, captured Iraqi policemen revealed that the SAS operators had already been moved to a separate, heavily guarded compound nearby. Wasting no time, the SAS regrouped and launched a second assault. This time, they struck with even greater force. Multiple entry points, simultaneous breaching charges, rapid room-clearing tactics. Classic hostage rescue maneuvers maneuvers meant to disorient and overwhelm the captors. The elite troops swept the compound, searching frantically for their comrades. At first, they feared they were too late, but then, buried deep inside the compound, the two SAS operatives were found, handcuffed, bruised, but very much alive. The raid was a success, but the political fallout was immense. The images of British tanks smashing through an Iraqi police station made headlines worldwide. The Iraqi government was humiliated, and protests erupted across Basra. Iraqis accused the British of undermining their sovereignty, while UK officials scrambled to justify the operation. The SAS, however, had no regrets. They lived by one rule: leave no man behind. McLaughlin later reflected on the incident, admitting that while he had full faith in his comrades, he had no idea about the political storm his rescue would create. The truth was simple: the SAS had no intention of letting their brothers die in a cell. Despite the controversy, the British government quietly approved the raid after the fact, realizing there was no other choice. The SAS had done what needed to be done. Consequences be damned. Mohammed al-Abadi, an official from the Basra governorate, gave his version of events to journalists, saying the soldiers aroused suspicion among Iraqi police. A policeman approached them, and one of these guys just opened fire. Then the police managed to capture them, he claimed. Meanwhile, senior British officials had their own take. They insisted that the attack on the warrior vehicle was premeditated, happening separately from the undercover operation. According to them, the real spark behind the violence traced back to the previous day, when about 200 fighters from the Al-Mahdi army, Muqtada al-Sadr's notorious militia, flexed their muscles in Basra. They had blocked roads, staged a show of force, and demanded the release of their detained commanders. This whole debacle threw a massive spotlight on just how much sovereignty Iraq really had after the US-led coalition provisional authority officially handed power to an interim Iraqi government in the summer of 2004. Because if Iraqi authorities couldn't even hold 2 British soldiers without an all-out military raid, what did that say about who was actually in charge? The arrests of the 2 Britons became the first real public test of that supposed Iraqi independence. And the results? Not exactly reassuring. To date, there had been no known cases of Iraqi forces arresting American soldiers operating in the country's core regions. But when it happened to British operatives, the response was swift and brutal. Aqil Jabbar, an Iraqi TV cameraman who lived right across the street from the Basra jail, described the scene. British commandos stormed in, guns blazing, to extract their captured comrades. In the chaos, about 150 Iraqi prisoners took the opportunity to escape, slipping away into the city. The 2005 Basra raid remains one of the most audacious SAS missions in modern history. It wasn't just a story of heroism, it was a statement that the SAS doesn't hesitate. That bureaucracy doesn't come before brotherhood, that when the chips are down, they will always bring their own home. What's your take on this legendary mission? Should the SAS have waited for approval, or did they make the right call? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown interesting, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because we've got plenty more legendary military stories coming your way.